hand, and on the other hand, before entering the presentation of my paper, I must say that I can see the methodological interest of that Aristides suggested, seeing the Eastern Mediterranean as a whole, but for my purposes, and I believe also for the specific needs or in general needs of Hellenic foreign policy, we cannot limit the area. I believe Greece's interests start from the non-EU Southeastern Europe and somewhere to Iran. And why I'm saying Iran is not because I'm coming from Macedonia and I remembered Alexander the Great, but by the way, we shouldn't become so historical when we're in a common meeting, because one may bring to mind the Maccabees and the balance of power and the balance of power towards Macedonians, that Jewish people went to Sparta. You know, the balance of power. This is a topic of my paper. But if Iran goes nuclear, then Turkey will accelerate, and then we will see what's going on much closer to our region than we may think today. So I've chosen the title "Strategy versus Ideology." Strategy as what do states prefer to do in international politics, be that isolationism, bandwagoning, balance of power, or hegemony. And from all these, I believe that what one may observe in the Middle East is balance of power and drives towards hegemony. Ideology, I include religion in ideology. And why I've chosen this topic, because I didn't hear the entire presentation from my friend, but I've heard the generals and previous ones. And I have the feeling that when one sees all these atrocities, vandalisms, all these images that come to us every day from Daesh, as my colleague suggested, then his mind goes straight to the clash of civilizations. Now, in my opinion, what's going on in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East today is not about religion, or not just about religion. It is about balance of power and regional hegemony. It is states using religion, as it happened in the 17th and the 18th century Europe, when rulers manipulate the religion and the notion of just war in order to implement their ambitions and form their nation state. And if one insists thinking in terms of religion, then we should understand it as an intra-Muslim religious conflict, as it has happened in the past between Catholics and Protestants, or as it has happened between Catholics and Orthodox, and not as a clash of civilizations. Now, methodologically, what I'm doing is I'm taking the two paradigms, the clash of civilizations as presented in 1993 first, and then in 1997 by Samuel Huntington. I'll skip all that because a friend gave me the 15 minutes, and I will go straight to the second part, the second paradigm, which I base on what we call in international relations structural realism in both its forms, defensive realism and offensive realism. Now, before I skip to that, I'll just say one word. The advantage, Huntington's approach paradigm has one advantage, offered us one advantage and one disadvantage. The advantage is that he brought in again the discussion about religion. I said I do not eliminate the dimension or the role of religion. I'm just saying I put it on the backstage, and I bring to the front balance of power and drives for hegemony. The negative thing is that it made people think in terms of clash of civilization, and especially extremists like jihadists setting the concept of clash of civilization as a purpose for them. And at the same time, this is another beneficial result or consequence, made at least to that point today, the Western governments be extremely careful in approaching those issues in terms of clash of civilization, because in my opinion, if they have seen it otherwise, then they would have fallen in the trap that these vandals and extremists want to bring the West in. Now, second part. The late Kenneth Waltz said, and many of us say, that states are pursuing force, power, in order to secure themselves, to achieve security. And it is more or less there that they stop. John Mearsheimer, he suggested that states are maximizing power. They always want to maximize power, become regional hegemons, and why not world hegemons? Of course, the tragedy follows, because they cannot become. Now, the international system today, the big image, is not exactly unipolar. Yet, no one may say that there is another pole than that of the West, with its leader, the United States. The United States has not provoked, I would tend to agree with the general, has not provoked the Arab Spring, yet he has tolerated the Arab Spring, and in a way, at least rhetorically, has encouraged the Arab Spring if one reads Obama's speech in Cairo a few years ago. What is most important is that the United States, in relation to the Middle East, they have, and other areas, have adopted the strategy, the doctrine of strategic patience. We don't know exactly what it is, but what we know is that by withdrawing from Iraq, not that they cannot come back, and not that their capabilities are limited, is that they left an important vacuum of power. And by leaving this important vacuum of power, then we have the failure of states and the instability that we notice and observe today. Now, since you're speaking about the international system, the other nuclear superpower has just tried to protect its last unique and failing ally in Syria. Let me go further to the Middle East. Competition existed. It was first all the Arab countries against Israel. Then in 1979, Iran and the mullahs came into power, and then Iran invited everybody against the pro-American Arab regimes, against Israel for the destruction of the state of Israel, and increased and provoked the tensions between Sunnis and Shiites. As I said previously, although I do not eliminate completely religion, I believe that it is systemic, and that in Syria they're not really fighting about the rightful successor of Prophet Muhammad. They fight for other things. Recent events, as I said, also started after the withdrawal of US troops from Iraq. Shiites dominated politically a big part of Iraq, and the Kurds the northern part. Sunni Muslims in power since independence lost. In relative terms, this was an important increase of power, of relative power for Iran, and a loss for Saudi Arabia and Turkey. Thus, neighboring states started getting involved in Iraq and at the same time in Syria. Let me examine now, for the remaining minutes, the behavior in general and in particular of these countries. I'll start first with Turkey. The general conclusion about Turkey is a power maximizer. This is what Turkey has been doing since 1974. It breaks with Israel and pretends being the protector of Palestinians. Deals with Iran, remains neutral in relation to its nuclear plans, and supports Iran's deal with the West. Erdogan went to Iran and was welcomed for that reason. Provokes the upheaval in Syria, and continues its involvement in Syria. Started building a nuclear power plant in Akuyu, and has a deal with Russia for at least one more nuclear power plant. And this all comes from friendly Russia and the change of policy that you were mentioning. It's very hopeful. So friendly Russia builds two nuclear power plants without any controls, more or less, or safeguards. Akuyu is a seismic area, very dangerous for our region. If something goes wrong, the entire region risks from radioactivity. And it's nothing like, it won't be anything like Fukushima. Turkey continues provoking Greece and Israel, maintains occupation in Cyprus, deals with Saudi Arabia and morses Egypt, increases defense spending and tries to become a Mediterranean naval power. They purchased an old helicopter carrier, trying to modify it and have a unit in the Mediterranean. And right now, although it was very aggressive in relation to Syria, in my opinion, they cannot expect anything better than a non-Kurdish, non-Shiite state in their borders. That's the best they can expect, because there's the worst for them. Saudi Arabia initially faces Saddam Hussein and Iran, yet its size of the military, and support from the United States may make Saudi Arabia feel secure. Its recent involvement in Yemen may be justified as a response to a security need, because right now Saudi Arabia faces not a Shiite presence, but an entire Shiite circle, and is trying to block the Iranian nuclear deal. Yet Saudi Arabia is maximizing power as well. Is involved in Egypt, Libya, and Syria. It has increased defense spending and expects at least a Sunni state in Iraq and Syria. At best, a Sunni-dominated Iraq. This is defense spending of Saudi Arabia. It's fifth or sixth defense spending in the world, right? Qatar is here. Qatar is trying to imitate Israel. Qatar is here. Egypt is here. No, Turkey is here. Israel is here. Qatar is here, but we have to see Qatar in the next slide. And this is Iran. So this is Saudi Arabia. Can I have the per capita? Yes. See where Qatar is. Few people, how much do they spend? Right? And reach rate somewhere else. So, and may I have the last one, please? Yes. What you were talking about the United States, right? But what is, for us, what interests here us is Saudi Arabia is among the 6-7 top defense spending countries. And for the Greek audience as well, this is how much Russia is spending. And this is how much China is spending. Because there is an overestimation of Russian or Chinese capabilities. Now, numbers are here. So Saudi Arabia, in my opinion, is the one which is obviously driving for the maximization of the power. Now, turning to Iran. Of course, there was an issue of security for the mullahs, especially after 1979 and all the frictions with the West. Iran went out and tried to support and supports the Assad regime, and Iran is trying to mobilize Shiites all over the world. Then, with this drug is also maximizing power, is involved in Yemen and certainly Saudi Arabia, expects to maintain influence in Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and why not in the future organize the Shiites in Pakistan, increased defense spending, and maintain its nuclear weapons program. In case of a deal, with losses from Iran and the Western capitals, then to get as close to the nuclear option, they will try to go as close as possible. And of course, their prestige in the Middle East will be increased. Now, let's see who gets what or who wins. My assessment gives, in my opinion, mixed results. Iran seems to win right now, especially if one takes into account the prospect of a future nuclear deal. The USA, on the other hand, seems that it is losing in terms of prestige and strategic influence among its traditional allies. That's, I think, is your opinion. Yet in the medium term, perhaps, in my opinion, and if the deal is concluded, the United States may assume a different role with a new state in the region, and perhaps use this new agent to fight, to combat Sunni extremism. Moreover, the United States may gain two new allies in the area where former Iraq was, in the area of former Iraq. Saudi Arabia appears to lose for the moment. Iran is to the east, Shiites to its northeast, and another Shiite actor to the southwest. Turkey appears to lose too. It has distanced itself from the west, and it faces a perspective of a Kurdish state in its borders. Now, Israel. Israel has been blamed by its neighbors, its Arab neighbors, for many things in the past. Yet, given objective variables and criteria, it cannot be blamed for aspiring to become a regional hegemon. Of course, right now I believe that Israel has relative gains. Why? Because two of its traditional enemies have disintegrated. First is Iraq, and the second is Syria. Yet, given the perspective of an agreement, there is diplomatic pressure and the legitimate worry of a nuclear Iran. Iran and Turkey, in my opinion, will continue to compete against Israel. And if a jihadist state is maintained and established, then the security dilemma will be increased. Finally, to come to my friend, younger colleague Aristotle, in my opinion, the two countries, and this is open to discussion, for consideration both in Israel and in Greece, it seems to me that Israel has not strategic depth to the front. And Greece does not have strategic depth also to the front. Now, Israel has not also strategic depth in the back. It's the sea. I'm concluding. That's my proposal for consideration. The two may be matched. Greece needs forward depth. Israel, in my assessment, needs backwards depth, so the two can be matched and they can be combined to satisfy mutual security interests. And that's my conclusion, dear friends.